There we go. The first time the cameras rolled in my recording room. The sound should be right on the money. The lighting's going to be changing. I only got a work light hanging on a screw on that wall in here right now. But it seems to be working right now, doesn't it? And of course I threw that mask that I purchased a couple years ago on the wall, and the top picture behind me is my grandfather and myself when I was about 5 or 6 years old, maybe 7. Trout fishing in his little aluminum boat off of Yubo. Yubo is a small town on the side of Cowichan Lake in Vancouver Island. That's where that photo was. And then of course the horse below is my BFF forever. BFF, which turns out to be a horse, Macaroni. So there. I salvaged all these are actual fence boards from the fencing I tore down on this property. And I had them in a pile ready to burn. And decided to go in there and drag them out and power spray them off and salvage them. So here we go. Let's get some voices heard out of this room for the first time ever with no background sound. The shop door doesn't have to be open to eliminate echo. It's crazy, isn't it? Busy day. Now here's an email sent in to me called Secondhand Story of Dogman. Please don't give my name out. My brother, before he moved to Texas after his divorce, during his marriage to his first wife, they were traveling down a secondary blacktop road in central Kansas. He came to a T in the road. It was daylight in the middle of the day. Then he was looking for traffic left and right. He noticed a big bipedal dogman. It had the funny looking dog legs and it was big and black. I asked him what did he do. He said he turned right and mashed on the gas to get away. He said the dogman kept up for a little bit. Finally, he drove away from the dogman. Then he told me when he lived by Kansas, he seen another dogman. He hasn't given me any of the details yet. I told him he's probably tagged. I know several dogman stories in Kansas, and yes, we have Bigfoot too. There have been reported 10-foot tall Bigfoot by Milford Lake, and yes, we have a military fort close. We have a military fort close by, Fort Riley. Recently by Brookville, Kansas. We've had cow mutilations, and the farmer took up the drone to see it from the sky where the cow died and found 3 points on the ground where the ground has been dug up in a triangular shape. Where the cow died, no animals will cross over. They sent the cow to Kansas State University to get an autopsy. I'll leave the link of the lady who interviewed the farmers and the veterinarian at Kansas State. You can find it on the YouTube channel Earth Files. Also, Kat Hansen YouTube channel has been dormant for a couple of years, but it has a lot of Bigfoot and Dogman information. She talks about the Bigfoot language and many other topics like portals. No link, but I guess I read it out in the email, didn't I? The Dogman thing. It's one of those crazy things, right? I mean, the Dogman topic still makes me go, what the F? Like, what the hell? Come on. But, like I said, no matter how much I wanted to dismiss this topic and not engage in it, I have no choice. Because there's literally thousands of innocent, honest, hardworking people that have seen these things. Exact same description. So what are you going to do? Right? I'm not an ostrich. I'm not putting my head in the sand. It's not going to happen. I'm going to trust my fellow people in our community no matter what. Right? As soon as that pattern shows up, you have my attention. If there's no pattern at all whatsoever, it's going to be tough to get my attention, although I'm not going to ignore. You know what I mean, you guys? Once there's a pattern, there you go. There's no getting out of it. You need the pattern. At least a little bit of one anyway. What's that sound? That's the horses on the other side of the wall. Eventually what I want to do too is I want to put some windows, cutouts on this wall so the horses can stick their heads in and visit. That'd be good, right? But anyway, thanks so much for sending that in. Appreciate it. And anybody else has any more information on that creepy ass topic, you seen it, you want to get it off your chest, send it in to me. All right? Now, if there's any knocking in the background, it's actually the horses bouncing their buckets off, the feed buckets off the wall next door. Now listen to this. This is titled Two Strange Encounters. Hello, Steve. Thank you for doing what you do, and I have two stories I'd be thankful for you to read. There aren't many people willing to take the time and genuinely do something for the people, and it's very admirable. I'm emailing you regarding a couple strange incidents I've experienced and want to share and see if anyone else has encountered the same thing. The first is a UFO sighting. It took place right outside my house. I live in the foothills of Colorado and only 20 minutes from Denver. I was going to grab something out of my car when I noticed a massive black sphere floating in the sky above my house. It wasn't moving, and when I noticed it, it was like my reality was shattering and nothing made sense. It remained in the air for a solid minute before slowly floating away above the tree line. I had a crappy Motorola phone at the time and managed to get a short video of it silently floating away. Only a moment passed before I heard the sound of jets coming from what seemed like the area this object came from. 2 jets flew over my house, and I can only imagine what they were looking for. I've since lost that phone and have been searching for it, and will send in the video if I manage to locate it. That wasn't my first UFO sighting, but it was the closest and most apparent. My second strange experience is something totally different, and it still doesn't make sense to me. My buddy was staying over at my house, and we were hanging out in a little 6x6 cabin, just drinking and shooting the shit. While we were joking, I saw what seemed like a black hair slowly floating downward from the ceiling. My friend stopped talking mid-sentence and noticed it as well. I'm not sure why, but I noticed it when it was above my head toward the ceiling, and when it passed by my friend, I could clearly see there was light being bent around it. I noticed the black strand in the middle when I fixated on it, and it mesmerized me the way it was bending space around it. I felt my hair stand up in my body and looked at my friend, who was just staring at the floor, dumbfounded by what we just saw. I looked over at him and said, "Did you see it too?" And he started freaking out. We both saw the same thing. I'm not sure how interesting or relevant this is, or if I will ever get a solid answer for what we saw, but it was very unnerving. I watched people like Dr. Stephen Greer talk about how extraterrestrials use devices to allow them to pass through different dimensions, but I'm not one to make those kind of reaches, though may be possible. Steve, I'd appreciate any input and word from you and the community. My name is Connor Stone, and I'm a member. I don't want to take up more time, but I have a few more incidents I'd like to share. I'll get back in line. Thank you. Si vis pacem passum para bellum. Don't know what that sentence means, and I probably butchered it. Sorry, man. That sounds interesting. I had a tough time trying to picture what you were describing. So if you want to, one day, and you got time, maybe do a little sketch of what you saw, right? Do a little sketch if you can. Or get somebody to sketch it for you. And then send it my way. And let's have a look. That sounds creepier than shit. Creepier than shit to me. Alright, this looks like a bit of a book. Alright, here we go. Don't know what this is about. Is Sasquatch an animal? Question mark. Hello, Steve and the How to Hunt family. I'm writing in response to the question. So what do you think? Is Sasquatch an animal? First, though, thank you, Steve, for all the love and devotion you've given to create this space of healing. Someone can share what they think is small or trivial, but it can be that missing piece for someone else, one step closer. Funny, too, how listening to the voices, the stories, sometimes trigger a long-forgotten memory. It's incredible. Thank you, each and every one. Now on to why I'm writing in. Sasquatch was known by many different names among the First Nations. Where this historical recounting takes place, he's called a Squanatix, meaning Stickwoods Indian, Skemicum, translated Stick Indian, and Chonito, or the Night People. Keep in mind that before the arrival of the white man in the Pacific Northwest, the natives only knew of other natives and Sasquatch. We believed him to be human, a different tribe. It is said at one time we traded with one another and shared the sweat lodge, or good medicine, long ago. Many recognized he had special abilities even then. They thought he could turn into a tree. He definitely possessed extreme stealth skills. Even the coloring of his hair camouflaged perfectly near trees or deadfalls, granting near invisibility. They could chase one after an incident, watch one run into an area like a gorge, surround it, and even with their best eyes and trackers see nothing leave, go in and search, and not even a trace to be found. Native people also experienced their loved ones being taken or killed by Sasquatch. He liked to steal everything: food, hides, fish, and yes, people too. Here's a recounting of one such incident. Names excluded to protect the family. If the family is part of the How to Hunt, I will share your story as it was told to me, but I will do my best to protect your privacy. And there are many inaccuracies. If there are any inaccuracies, I apologize. Sometimes things get screwed up in translation. I think this story should be shared based on the question, do you think Sasquatch is an animal? Around the turn of the century, 1885 to 1900, the Native Americans had made a fish camp near Keller on the San Pol River, Washington. The men had returned in the evening with their day's catch, hungry and tired. It had been a good day fishing, so much fish. The woman got busy processing the fish and hanging them on the drying racks to dry. They would work through the night till they finished. One of the women left the camp and went to the river to fill her kettle with water for cooking. A short time later, her terrified screams shattered the night. The men jumped to their feet and ran down to see Sasquatch, carrying her away. They could only stand and watch, for they knew if the Sasquatch were angered or harmed, the captive would also be harmed or killed. Because Sasquatch, are extremely vengeful. Also, no Indian would be safe in those mountains again. She was with the Stick people through that summer for several months. The men continued to keep watch for her, still searching off and on as time went by. One day she was seen gathering wild potato roots. The Sasquatch was asleep nearby. The woman quietly put her wild potato roots on the ground and crept slowly toward the men. Once she got close enough, she leaped onto the back of one of the horses and they all escaped. As soon as the rescue party returned with the woman, they hurriedly broke camp and immediately left the area. She had become pregnant from the Sasquatch, and bore a son. He was short, about 5'4" tall, though his mother was said to have been a tiny woman. It is told he was very ugly but extremely intelligent. He went to school, and again it's noted he was super smart. He operated a really nice ranch. He died around the age of 30 and is buried on the reservation. He was an especially affluent man with a good ranch, and he married quite easily. He is said to have been a gentleman and never beat his wife or mistreated her in any way. From their union, 5 children were born, 2 boys and 3 girls. His 2 sons died young, as did 1 daughter. Of the 2 surviving daughters, the one that was, quote, ugly, end quote, by native standards, having distinct features of the Sasquatch, including long, peaked ears, really wide mouth, large protruding teeth, squint eyes, large sloping forehead, arms too long, and more. She moved away to the city as an adult. Sadly, she became an alcoholic, spending too much time in the taverns. The, quote, normal, end quote, looking girl married and had children. One of the granddaughters grew up hearing whispers from others in the tribe that her paternal grandfather was half Sasquatch. After much time, the elders confirmed it, but it was a hush thing for obvious reasons. This granddaughter and other female members in the family have had multiple experiences with the Sasquatch. However, they don't play with it or welcome contact. Actually, quite the opposite. They leave immediately. Okay, one more from Isabel, a native woman who was 100 years old when she recounted this story from her great-grandfather's time. It was fall and hunting party out near Wenatchee Lake, Washington, hunting, when one of the men gets separated from the group and was captured by the Chonito, the night people, Sasquatch. He was taken up into the mountains and held captive by the Chonitos, the night people, through the winter into spring. In the spring they returned him where they had captured him. Upon his return to his tribe, the people recognized him, but couldn't believe their eyes because he was believed to be dead. So long he'd been missing. The Chonito, it's Chonito, night people, had treated him well, though they hadn't allowed him to go with the hunting parties, and he had to stay in camp with the women. Isabel also mentioned the lights seen moving in the night on or near mountains, still to this day, as being the lights from the Chonito, the night people, hunting parties. In these areas, the natives warn to be off the mountains before dark. A couple last things to share as follows. The Sasquatch had or have areas they've claimed long ago. They're territorial. The Native Americans knew and know of these areas and respect that. I heard of the valley that is very inaccessible that is theirs. Man isn't welcome there. No hunting, no fishing, no woodcutting. Even better, have permission to drink from a stream. Excuse me. Too dangerous to even cross to a different region from there. It's a no-go zone. They eat anything a person can eat in the wild. There was an agreement or understanding between them and some of the other native tribes, and it went like this. If one Sasquatch was harmed by the natives, then Sasquatch took 20 people from the tribe. Took as in killed. They can be incredibly vengeful. I don't want to give anyone the idea that they are warm and fuzzy teddy bears, because they are not. Well, this turned into a book practically. That's not even all, but it's late and I'm tired, so I'm calling it a day. God bless you and yours, always. Signed, Rowdy Wrangler. Excuse me. P.S. Not using my real name so as to protect the innocent. I'm resending this because only hours after I sent the original of what I remembered of this story to How to Hunt, a different channel, David Plaitis' Bigfoot 101 told the same story, but with more details. And it comes from a book titled They Walked Among Us, second edition, by Ed Fush, an anthropologist. I did grow up on the reservation, and I heard these stories along with more. I was unaware there was a book, and I'm excited to order it myself. It really seems strange that the question, do you think Sasquatch is an animal, jogged my memory back to reservation growing up and the stories told there, to the point that I felt so compelled to write into How to Hunt to help perhaps solve the puzzle with this story of proof of breeding with humanity. To wake up the next morning and hear the story from David Plaitis. Honestly, I was shocked and wonder, what are the chances? What does it all mean? The exact episode, if you all want to hear it, is on David's channel. David Plaitis presents Bigfoot 101 Class 19. Definitely worth a listen. Tons of information. While attending school there or at that time, the tribal elders came in and shared stories and taught us children a lot. Also took us on field trips to some strange areas, telling stranger stories with the warnings concerning the local area. Among the many things they taught us moccasin making, basket weaving, pottery, canoe building, and other things, all according to tradition, the old ways. It was exciting back then to go to school. I don't know if this practice continues today, but I hope so. Me too. God bless you, Steve, Sarah, and fur babies, and the entire How to Hunt community. Be safe out there. Well, how random is that Dave had the exact same story, or a version of it more detailed, on his channel, right? I'm quite sure he wouldn't even think for a second I was hijacking. Right? Not at all. We have extreme high respect for each other. That's not the first time that we have heard of people being taken. We've definitely not the first time heard of people being killed. There's a couple trappers where one of the trappers, they both had an old story of two trappers where they felt watched, left camp, something messed with camp. The next night something messed with camp even more something, and then they split up to pull their gear and leave. One guy came back, and there was his buddy rolled around in the dirt a bunch of times with a bunch of fang marks on his neck, killing him with one bite or something. That was a popular old story. And then there was Albert Ostman, who went into the woods not too far from where I was previously living. And I think they went to the head of Toba Inlet. And the native guide, a bunch of native guides would not go there with him. He found one that would go with him, but he only went to a point and said, "That's as far as I go." The Albert Ostman carried on all of his gear, shot a grouse for dinner, I believe, with his rifle, and that night something grabbed him, all of his gear, and took him. And his story was he was interviewed numerous times by the law, detectives, news reporters. His story was put in print in a newspaper, and I think he passed a polygraph test too, and he managed to escape. You guys, I'm sure you've all heard the story, but he managed to escape and hiked out, and some loggers found him. And that, where the description of where he was taken is roughly fairly close to the head of the Pemberton Valley where I ran around looking for sign of these beings intentionally, and found a little more than I asked for. Yeah. What else? There is also a report of a Russian community who took a female almas, I think we call them ALM, almas, ALMAS. They believe that's what they refer to these people as in Russia, and took her into the community, held her captive. Apparently she had extremely ridiculous strength, and she became pregnant, I think more than once, from some of the local dirtbags in that community. What the hell, right? Anyway, and she is said to have drowned her baby in a freezing creek when she just went to go wash it off, killed it, apparently. And there's a lot more to that story too, but that's another one that is very well documented. But this one that you just shared, this is the first time I heard of it. It's the first time I heard of it, for sure. And I've already shared earlier, I don't have time to watch. I very, very rarely watch YouTube videos, and I very rarely watch Dave's channel. I just don't have time. Although we do talk, and I send him stuff, and he sends me stuff. But I don't watch. I don't have the time to watch his videos. I watched a couple in this past month, but I don't stay on top of his feed, right? But anyway, absolutely appreciate you sent that in to us to share with us, and took that time, which is valuable. And if you want to share more, please, please, please do. Please, all right? Keep it coming. If you got something, anything on there, that'll help the people send it in to us, okay? It's very interesting, right? It's very interesting. But how many Native communities have always, it is a solid, popular pattern, is keeping the women, the children safe when they know there are Sasquatch around the communities. There's no secret about that one, right? And then you're going to ask, well, why is that? Well, there's your answer. Right. All right, here's another one. This is titled Colorado Experience. Hi, Steve. I've been watching your channel for several years now, but just decided to share my story. I'm super glad you did. This happened Sunday night of Colorado's first rifle elk season on October 12, 2014. I was hunting west of Colorado Springs near a little spot called Antero Junction. On Antero Junction. Antero. To get to my camp was a 30-minute drive down a Forest Service road, 20 minutes down a smaller road, and then another 20 minutes down a little used 2-track. I was the only one out there. The nearest camp was miles away in a straight line, but to drive there would take about 30 minutes. There's not a lot of elk in this area, but there is plenty of solitude, which I always preferred. This area is sectioned off with barbed wire fences into large pastures, 3 miles by 3 miles approximately, to keep the range cattle in certain areas during different times of the year. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there were cattle all around my camp. I had coyotes so close to me while I was in my tent that I could hear them growling at each other. I guess they were staying close to the cows to try to catch a calf alone. I'd found a herd of elk about 3 miles away. They're coming out on the east-facing slopes at first light to catch the sun as it was frigid, 5 to 10 degrees in the morning and 6 inches plus snow on the ground. When I came back to camp on Sunday night, though, things were different. The cattle vacated the area by my tent and were all bunched up on the western side of the pasture about 3 miles from my camp, and they were out in the meadows in a tight circle similar to what muskox do as a defense against predators, which I thought was odd. Ate dinner and crawled into my tent about 9, and it was absolutely quiet. No noises whatsoever, which was completely opposite from the last couple of nights. At 10:20 that night, I was laying on my bag, planning out my next day, which was my last day I had to hunt. When, from about 50 yards away, something made a noise from the north of me. Not quite a growl, and not quite a roar. It lasted for only a second, and I always described it like when you clear your throat, when you smell something bad, kind of like saying, whew. But it was so deep, I could feel it in my chest, rumbling around and shaking my insides. Typically I leave my rifle in the truck, but because of the strong feeling I was having at camp, I took it into the tent with me that night. I immediately grabbed it and wrapped around, then placed it across my lap. I had my .357 across my chest in my left hand. Other than that, I didn't make a sound and I didn't hear a thing. I was going over what the noise could be in my head, and all I could come up with was a black bear. There's not supposed to be grizzlies in Colorado, but I've been around plenty of them, and I've never heard anything like it. 20 minutes later, from behind me, south of me, I heard a rock hit the ground to my left of the tent, and a couple seconds later, another rock off to the right of the tent. I've always thought they were softballer-sized rocks from the sound they made when impacting the ground. 5 seconds after the last rock hit, there was a whoop off to my left, and immediately there was an answering whoop to my right. I was frozen, both inside and outside. I literally couldn't move, and I knew that if anything touched my tent, I was shooting it with my .308 and emptying my .357. But nothing else happened, and that was that. I never slept, never turned my lantern off, never even closed my eyes, and didn't leave my tent until the sun was fully up and I could see. I grabbed everything, threw it in the back of my truck, and left without even looking for any tracks. I might have made a break for it that night, but my truck was 30 yards away and I just couldn't make myself do it. I still hunt that general area, but not that particular spot though. And I've heard wood knocks, and I get the feeling of being watched, and I've heard weird howls that end in roars, but nothing like my first experience, thankfully. I don't backpack solo anymore though, which is a bummer, but I just can't get over how vulnerable I felt laying in that tent all alone. I had nightmares for years. I'm always on edge when I'm out in the hills, especially alone. Love your show, Dennis. Appreciate you, Dennis. Welcome to the club. Lifelong member. Don't know what number you are, but just so you know, excuse me, Dennis, I don't know if you've been following my adventures on the other channel, this channel, or whatever I got out there, the hunting stuff, but I hunt elk every year, and usually I do it by myself. I prefer to hunt by myself, and I camp by myself, and it's almost like when I'll explain it to everybody, excuse me, it's almost like when I go to bed at night, it's almost like I've accepted my fate in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're alone and you go to sleep in a tent in the middle of nowhere, you're basically just you're offering up your ass to whatever wants it. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you'd like to think that you're going to kill or annihilate anything that messes with you, that comes into your camp or tries to harm you in your tent. And yeah, I sleep with a gun all the time. Always, of course I do. Do I put one in the tube? All depends on how I'm feeling. Sometimes I put one in the tubes. Most of the time I won't. But usually I'll just start to half rack one and leave my bolt, just back an inch, and then I go to sleep. But I sleep like a brick. But if you picture anything jumping on top of a tent with you in it, you imagine trying to get your rifle and point it in the direction of your assailant. It's not going to happen unless you are absolutely extremely lucky. You know what I mean? Anyway, I don't even know why I'm talking about that. Excuse me. Dennis, you said it's plagued you for years. It's plagued all of us for years. None of us cannot think about it ever when we go hunting. It's not possible, as you know. It's not possible. But I hate to hear people that stop doing what they love to do. And I've admitted I struggle through it. I still do it though. I make sure I still do it, and I make peace with whatever may possibly be out there that may want to give me a few adrenaline shots through the night or something. You know what I mean? I just say flat out, if you're here, I know you know I'm here. Just leave me alone. I don't want nothing to do with you. I'm not going to try to get any pictures of you. I'm not going to harass you or look for you or share knowledge of you. I don't want nothing to do with you. Just leave me alone. Let me hunt. Don't scare the shit out of me. Don't let me be. It seems to work for me for the most part, but I think that the most things that happen to me actually have just been while I have been sharing emails in places. Because you got to think about it. If there is some kind of an intelligent being around watching me do what I'm doing, they're going to be real curious, right? Anybody be real curious. What the hell is that dude doing over there? I would imagine. But anyways, I'm babbling, aren't I? What I'm saying is, Janice, is try to do it again, and go with your instincts. If you feel too much pressure, don't go. If you hear something, they let you know they're there. Well, if they let you know you're there, if they let you know they are there, then obviously you're gonna react the way you're gonna react. But keep going. Go somewhere else and just test the water. You know what I mean? Just go out and feel. You'll know. You will know. You will feel the pressure if you're in tune with your intuition. If you are in tune with your real true self, you will know. You'll feel it, and you'll know not to go. You let your intuition make every one of your decisions, and that's what I do in life. And it's been working out for me pretty good since I learned how to be. What would you say? It's like being absolutely in tune with yourself. I like to think I am. I've done every dumb thing you can imagine growing up. But I have finally come in tune with myself the last, I don't know how many years, enough. And I have absolute confidence in myself when it comes to doing the right thing and sensing what is actually possibly going on around me, or whether or not is going to be a threat for me to go here or go there or sleep in the woods up there. I like to think that I know what the right thing to do is, and so far it's been working for me. Anyway, enough of me babbling. That was a bit of a babble, right? I'm a little babbly since I've been in the new room here. But anyway, man, I appreciate you saying that in. Absolutely appreciate it. And I hope it helps you too, Sharon. It seems to help a lot of people. Alright, now this next one is a screenshot from a YouTube comment. Now, this is from James Curley. The text is a little tiny on here. Hello, Steve. Hope you see this. I'm going to be sending the story of an experience I had while camping with my older brother Jeff on French Mountain in Lake George, New York, 12845. The area in which it took place has since been developed. I joined the club in no return at 12 years old. Like the rest, I've kept this memory and its story repressed for 45 years. Those I told, members of my family, have since passed away. My dad, who stood by me when I needed him, my mom also, they knew I had seen it. The fear in my voice and the fact that I had cold sweats telling them. My brother, who was with me that night in that meadow, he passed in December 2016. God rest their souls. That's unfortunate. The love I carry in my heart for them cannot be expressed in words. I miss them every day. They knew the truth. Thank you, Steve. Finally, people that will believe me and what I saw. All I know is this species is real. There may even be more than one type. I'm 57 now, and being disabled have a hard time getting out to hunt or fish, but I never let the fear of the big hairy fellow bother me. Why? Because if for some reason this humanoid giant wanted to hurt you, I have no doubt, knowing what I've seen, you'd have a hell of a time stopping it. Thanks again, Steve. You're a no bullshit kind of guy. Me too. God bless. Never quit. Never surrender. All right, man. Listen, James. I don't believe I've read an email from you. So, you're still watching, buddy. Share my story at howtohunt.com is where you email it. And make sure you get it to me, all right? So you can be heard. You want everybody who has experienced the same thing as you to hear you as well, all right? And maybe you have some knowledge or something that may help somebody as well, or at least the area where you saw it. Whatever you saw, sharing it helps. It helps you, and it helps a lot of other people here too, all right? And I would absolutely appreciate it. Now, I'm ready to fall over tired. I'm done. It's actually in the evening on Monday after the fishing derby. And I'm going to get ripping. But anyway, quick note. I caught a quick mention online when I cracked up with the computer this morning, and it was a thing about Steven Spielberg and how he made a quick mention by saying that as a what all of these UFOs may be in the sky, he said, what if they are actually us from the future? And it kind of made me go, whoa. How about that one getting the wheels turning? Have you ever heard somebody take that angle to look at what may be going on? Maybe it's us from the future. That's a holy shit. Imagine if that was true. Anyway, you gotta wonder, especially some of these Hollywood people, what they drop, right? Hollywood seems to have predicted a lot of shit that's come true. A little too many times, right? Who knows? But I'll be back shortly.
Yep.